Hey, what's up guys? Today we are going to look at Paulo and Lycanroc. I do not have him. I'm just going to put it out there now. I do not have him yet. And even if I get him, I don't plan to raise him just yet. So this is more of a textbook analysis. I'm just looking at the stats, looking at the numbers, looking at the skills, and seeing whether he's any good. Now, let's take a look at the base unit first. So 1 out of 5, what are you going to get out of him? So Paulo is, by the way, the villain, the rival of Pokemon Masters game. So he's an original character. So if you like this game a lot, you probably should have him. He would be the equivalent of blue to red. So it's Paulo to main character of this game. Alright, so he's a sprint unit, and rightfully so, because he's got some really sprinty moves. By that I mean Accelerock, yep, so it doesn't cost any gauge. It's, in that sense, it's a pretty gauge efficient move, but that's not what I mean. So what I mean is every time you use Accelerock, his sync move countdown goes down by 1. So that's on top of the actual countdown by 1 when you use a move. So that means every time he takes a turn, when you use Accelerock, it goes down by 2. You use it 3 times, and that's down by 6, and that's nearly a whole sync move countdown by itself. After using its sync move, it will also, if it's EX'd, because of the sprint roll, it will take the sync move countdown down by another 3. So in total, he's reduced sync move countdown by 9 in 3.5 turns. At which point, he can now activate Willful Howl. Now this is an interesting one. At the cost of some move gauge, it will raise attack, defense, special defense, and speed of all allied sync pairs. So in other words, he's actually more like a support character with this move. A pretty decent support for physical type Pokemon. And of course, to buff that even further, he gets physical move up next to all allied sync pairs by 2 stat ranks. So nothing overtly broken, but a very nice physical type, support type character that also speeds up the sync move countdown a lot while being able to buff itself like a striker. Its trainer move also speeds up sync move countdown. So basically, he just counts down that sync move like crazy. Now, he's actually quite good during Sandstorm as well. So if you use him in a Sandstorm team, Paulo's reserve protects all units from sandstorm damage, so you don't need sand shelter, even for non-sandstorm units. The sandstorm will be useful to multiply the power of its sync move because of the multiplier here. Now, Paulo has an expanded grid to 5 out of 5, which is annoying. That means you got to scout him 5 times in order to do sort of maximum utility or damage, but let's have a look if we actually need all 5 out of 5. Oh, I should mention that it might seem like Paulo cannot set up Sandstorm. He can. It's just in his max move, using Max Rockfall. And his passive will extend that Sandstorm as well, so that it lasts a bit longer. So let's head back to the grid. And I must say that there's really only one thing you really need him for in the 5 out of 5 expanded grid. It's the Accelerock Defense Destroyer. This is the only one that makes sense. It's basically Defense Crush times 2, but 100% chance of activating. So it lowers the opponent's defense by 2 every time Accelerock hits. So in 3 turns, not only has your count down on the sync move gone down by 6 in 3 turns, but also the defense of your opponent is now at -6. On top of what I've put in the grid here is a sync nuke node, that and that and that, all boosting sync move. And then this one is boosting regular move during a sandstorm. So you should have sandstorm set up for this grid to run. But let's be a bit more realistic. Who's actually pulling him 5 out of 5 on the first day? Not many people, so let's go with a 3 out of 5 grid. If you require him to be self-sufficient, put in Fierce Entry, because his trainer move doesn't max out his stats straight away in 1 turn. With Fierce Entry, the attack will be +6 by the time you use the trainer move. And you can still largely get all of the multipliers for the sync move without -6 defense using this grid. Now, a curious point that somebody pointed out on my Discord is, what about this node here for Lycanroc? This is to restore 1 MP of a quick move tag move, and it only happens after a sync move. Now, in Paulo's situation, the weird thing is that node only works for Accelerock. That's because you need to use a sync move in order to unlock the body move. So if you can only restore 1 MP, 1 move point, after using a sync move, and you haven't even used this body move just yet, which you can't actually use Willful Howl twice. So no matter what, you can only use it once. You will get 1 extra Accelerock because of that node if you really want to go for it. So I don't think I'll use this grid, but this is more of an alternative grid if you're thinking of more like a support type of. I've overused the sync points there. There we go. Something like this, or like any mixture of these nodes over here. So you could run Surging Sand instead of this one. You could do something like this. Look, it's totally up to you. If you're running more of a support type of Lycanroc and not doing too much damage, then this form of Lycanroc would do 1 more Accelerock. But Accelerock it's only really good for that sync move countdown if you don't have 5 out of 5 unlock for Defense Destroyer. So all in all, I'm not seeing anything too broken here. It's just a generally good unit. Alright, what about Tina and Flareon? This is another strange unit. It's got a lot of utility, and being a support that has the ability Charm is actually quite nice. But it's strange because while Charm can lower the attack of the opponent, let's say you're up against a physical attacker type opponent, what she additionally does at the same time is with her passive Team Mind Bracing Infliction, she raises your team's special defense. Now, that doesn't actually make sense, because if your opponent was purely using physical moves, raising special defense doesn't actually do anything. But of course, if your opponents were doing a mixture of attacks, this is great. Like if you're up against a legendary, for example, that does physical attack moves and special attack moves, then while she's debuffing the attack, she's also raising your team's special defense, which is great. I've got to say, her trainer move it's a bit spread out. It raises all these stats: attack, defense, special defense, and speed, but only by 1 stat. So it kind of just tops up your units. It doesn't actually provide maximum sort of support buffs. She is gauge efficient in the sense that she will boost speed with her move gauge acceleration, but also Flame Charge will be able to raise her own speed up to a maximum as well, +6 after a few turns. Always nice to see Dire Hit Plus because a lot of units do use a lot of help from this Dire Hit trainer move. So let's take a look at Flareon's sync grid. Now, to use Flareon as mostly just a tank, trying to heal, trying to have a grid that mostly recovers HP, you do something like this. This is not a sunny day one. You can do a sunny day one if you've got a sun setter teammate. So I'll show you that in a moment. But this one will allow you to have first aid, and also this one's interesting. Every time you use a status move, there's a 40% chance of healing all allied sync pairs if the move is successful. And then Team Sentry entry will help just bolster the defenses of your Pokemon, which makes sense because Charm should be used against a physical attacker, so you want that defense to go up. So the only thing that's missing in this grid is Team Sync Regen. If you've got a support unit EX, this will be quite a good one to use. Then what I would do, and I think this is probably a better grid for a healing Flareon, I would use this grid, but you need a Sun Setter for Speeding Sun and Healing Sun to activate. Now, if it's a stage where you need Burning status, Flareon can provide that. So, for example, against like Uxie or Legendary that requires a status condition, so you will want to be over here for Flame Charge. And then if it's like a Latias sort of legendary, you need to debuff the opponent. Then you can use Trip Up as well. You just got to take out some other nodes, maybe something like this if you're still running Sun, something like this. So all in all, you can see that Flareon can use all corners of its sync grid, so everything's kind of viable, just depends on what you're up against. So a generally fair unit, but nothing too broken. Flareon is no Zapdos and Blue, for example, so if you haven't got Blue and Zapdos, make sure you go get him.